Welcome guys, the company are signing the Armed Forces Covenant. We want to show what that means to us, all four veterans, obviously from different eras and stuff. I had the idea to approach some of the people within the company, because obviously this is to educate why we've signed it and what it means to us as different generations and stuff. But obviously I wanted to give the people upstairs a chance to ask their questions about our time in. So I've got a long list, should I say? Do you have what are your fondest memories when you look back on your time served?
My fondest memory, and first and foremost, and I think you'll all agree with this, is the camaraderie. It's second to none. There's no place like it. Everybody has each other's back, and so on. Once you've left, if you don't keep in touch, you miss those friends immensely, and so on.
Spot on. Probably a good place to start after that. We go back to the beginning. So what were your motivations for joining the military was one of the questions that got put forward.
Well, I remember growing up and watching obviously Afghan happening on the news. I can't remember, there was a show on BBC Three, I think it was called Our War or something, and it was like head camp. I mean, you probably remember it. You probably involved in it. It was like head camp footage.
You were probably on
it. Was head camp footage of people in Afghanistan. I remember I used to watch it all the time, and I used to like go. That's what I want to do when I'm older. Obviously, by the time I was able to join Afghan finished, but I remember when I was doing my GCSEs, the Manchester terrorist attack happened, and one of my oldest friend's sister was involved in it. And it really, that's what sort of drove me, because I've so wanting to do anything I could to bring the people who'd done that to justice. So that's sort of the main thing for me, because that was happened when I was 16, and within a year I'd sort of signed the paperwork and I was joining.
I used to think, especially as young lads, you sort of watch it and you think, you want a piece of that.
Crazy as well, because for me, obviously your motivation growing up to join's my war kind of thing, and that's why we wanted to get together to do this, because it is weird getting from them different backgrounds. And when I joined, I wanted to be a professional rugby player growing up. Thought I made it. I was playing for Leigh Centurions, broke my collarbone in 3 places, got let go, realised sport's quite a fickle kind of industry, and decided to go and get shot at instead. But because we were in Iraq at the time, I had to research it and saw that the Royal Marines do the longest, hardest infantry training in the world. So I thought, if I'm going getting shot at, I want the best training to do it. So I joined the Marines, and then passed out. Luckily as an original, which is quite a tough thing to do. We started with 32 lads, and there was only 12 of us left at the end. But it is crazy, and knowing your reason for joining, but then you come full circle again. Your friend's sister who was in the arena bombings. Obviously when I lost my leg in Afghan, I got asked to go and do a motivational talk for the worst. They put a rehab package for the worst survivors of the arena bombings, and they asked me to go and talk to them to show them what you can achieve after losing limbs and serious injuries. And I was petrified of it. To this day, it's probably the hardest talk I've ever done, but it shows you again where down the line we are all connected. So what about you, Tom?
We are. I mean, I had no real aspirations to join the military when I was 16. I just didn't have a job. And it just came over me one day. I'm going to go. I'm going to join up. And initially, I hated it. Mum, they're making me shave.
It's not many of us do that now.
And so on. But yet again, overnight, after a period of time, that came over me. I'm staying here, I'm making a go at this, and the rest is history,
No problem. Well then, guys, the next question we got was, what was the most challenging experience you have personally faced during your time in the forces?
There's some training things that I thought were harder, some things I did in battalion that were harder, but then the thing that I think sort of psychologically was probably a bit harder was when I went to South Sudan. Obviously we was in a refugee camp, and it's the world's poorest country, so it literally is the poorest people in the world. I remember before I went, my mum was like, Joe, there's worse things than seeing people die. And sort of just seeing people, literally the poorest people in the world, every day, who have nothing, just sort of going about their lives. There's not really much, there's nothing you can do. Kids coming up to you asking for water and food. So there's literally nothing you can do for them.
I think like mine's probably gonna be a weird answer for my toughest time, because you'd naturally probably think, like, obviously getting blown up's not an easy time, but like it was kind of out of my hands at that point. I didn't really have to do much about that. I think the hard bit was like not Afghanistan yourself, a bit like what you were saying, seeing the locals like wanting to be, but my hardest part was knowing, like, when the lads got blown up and we had to carry on doing a job, or the fact that I come back to the UK knowing I can't do anything to help my mates anymore, but they didn't know whether I was back in the UK within 24 hours, and they didn't know whether I was alive or dead, but I had to carry on with what we were doing. We were on operation. You've got to get the job done. You can't just stop and worry about it because one of your lads has gone, but then I'm the other end of the straw on a helicopter knowing I can't do anything. I'm coming out of the war zone and out of harm's way, and my mates are there and I'm not there with them anymore and then when you hear the stories of lads getting hurt while you're not there, that's probably the hardest bit to deal with, because, you know, when I was on the ground, my mates came to me and put me back together. I can't repay that favour now, and that's probably the toughest part we had. So moving on, probably this is quite pertinent to what we're doing and signing the covenant. How did you find it adjusting back to civilian life? Because obviously we've all been. You can serve for a month. You can serve for 6 years. You can serve long term like yourself, but
it's very difficult.
You get institutionalised, don't you?
It was very difficult because what hits you straight away, take employment out the equation. One thing what hits you straight away is your house. You've probably come out of the military, you've bought this house and everything like that. Good grief, I've got to do that now.
Yeah.
I've got to do that now. I've got to do this now. Can I just ring the estate warden and send somebody around and get that done? You know, to the property or whatever. It's all on us now and me, and plus you've got to pay for it as well. There is that aspect to it. Employment, I found quite difficult initially, and it took me about 9 months before I got a proper job. Getting in there with the interview techniques and everything like that, which was obviously vitally important.
Like, you go from your accommodation's paid for out your wage every month, your food's paid for out your wage. Obviously, you knew your area. Just as I was leaving, Page Your Dine came in, so you had to start having some responsibility paying for your food.
Plus you're top of the tree, you're the boss.
That's the thing,
and you're not anymore now.
No.
You know, nobody out there cares what rank you were or anything like that, or whatever you were, or what you did, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, all my money at the end of a month were just paid tokens when I was in. Like, everything else is taken care of. You're out on the lash every week. So when you come out and I joined at such a young age, really. I didn't know how to do my banking. I didn't know how to pay my bills. Like until I'm quite lucky that my wife back then, my missus, like, she sorted me right out, because I was paying bills and didn't even know what were coming out of my bank. And we got together and she was like, "What, are you paying this for that, really?" And she sorted it all out for me, and then started educating me on it, because you never really, like, I think there's more support there now as you come out, but back then that weren't there. It was just like, "See you later, thank you." And I come out in the big bad world as an adult a lot more mature than I went in, and you're like, where's my beer tokens gone? Like, what am I having paid for this? I've got, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, what's council tax? What?
Like, it's mental. And like, work wise, you jump from from a lot of my mates I know that came out around the same time as me. We've had that many jobs, and you look at, like, now working talent attraction, I look at CVs and see people that bounce from job to job to job like I did, and you're like, you look at my CV, it looks quite impressive with some of the things I've done, but you've still gone from thing to thing to thing, because it's like you can't settle. And if I look at a CV like that in talent attraction, you're like, well, they don't really hold the job down.
Yeah,
but,
it tells you.
You start wondering. Whereas that's kind of like with the covenant again, like what we want to do and what we're trying to put on like a workshop for veterans, because it's like you said, you come out and you were 9 months before you got a job because your CV's militarised. it's not civilianised, so they don't like
yeah,
you read it, and
yeah.
you've got amazing things on
Yeah.
there, but to a civvy it means nothing.
No, so I thought it'd be dead easy because I never saw myself as like institutionalised or anything like that. Because I've done me 4 years, and I'm not really. Do you know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was a soldier. The hardest thing for me, I think, was just personally, is that you know you don't really think about it, but life has moved on. People you know back home have moved on. They've lived how 23 years. Do you know what I mean? They've lived their life without you.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to mates. Oh yeah, we're going out on the Thursday night. They're like, I've got work tomorrow. But to me, that was why you go out on Thursday night and you rock up to Commanding Officer's PT on the Friday, and you got to do it. You know, you phone up and you, do you know what I mean? But you're loving it. But to me, my mate's like, no, I've got to be in work at 11. I'm like,
11.
yeah, 11. Sorry, I've got to be. I was doing 10-mile runs at 8 in the morning. Which,
Yeah, you could always tell them who'd been out on a Thursday night because they'd be throwing up
Yeah.
on Friday morning halfway around.
So yeah, next question. Quite like this one. I'm quite excited to ask this one and see how you all respond. But during your time, how do you think you were viewed by society? So obviously now we're going 3 different generations. So it's going to be quite interesting. I'm going to chuck it over to you first, Tom.
I think at the time, throughout my period in the military, we weren't as well appreciated as we are now. And I don't know the reason for that, to be honest with you. And because now there's much more focus on the military, isn't there? I think so anyway, you know, and you speak to people and you tell them you're a veteran and everything like that, and you say, oh, wow, you know, how are you, you know, what we talk about and this and that and the other, but throughout my period, I didn't get that. I didn't feel as we were revered as much, you know, whether it's a society change or what. I don't know.
That's quite interesting, that though, because like obviously when you were around when the Falklands were happening, and you see all the videos of the lads coming back and people are on the cheering them on.
Period is slightly different.
Yeah.
I would go to Northern Ireland and everything like that, where certain sections of the community, well, it goes without saying, doesn't it? I get that at the Falklands. Yeah, most definitely during that period. But as a whole, I don't think so as much as they are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going from that, then we'll go to the now. Like, what do you think? How do you guys feel?
Scott, you can go first, Scott.
Well, we'll go both. But yeah, I would say I think there's a certain reluctance. Like there's definitely like you know, viewed for highly. I think there's just a very reluctance when they sort of get involved now, and I think that's the reason why they don't want boots on the ground. And I think it's sort of the public, or like, you know, society just don't want it because they see the things that have happened over the last 20 years, and they just don't want it anymore. But I think that just goes down to sort of that it's a good thing. They're viewed quite highly in society, and they don't want to put sort of British lives in danger. So I would say that it sort of translates into quite a good thing, and I think it's a good view. What yourself?
So when I was in 2 barracks in my time in the army, and the first one where I was after I completed training was Hounslow. I don't know if you know Hounslow. It's really, very, really, really diverse. And we were not like there at all. Every time I was on the front gate, people was throwing stuff over, walking past, driving past, doing gun fingers, everything. There was actually a pub down the road, which I don't know how true this is, but apparently there was like a terrorist plot planned at this pub, literally 400 metres down the road. Obviously the Lee Rigby thing was like really, even though it been like 6 years when I was there, it was still very much like you need to do not leave camp wearing any military suit, any even t-shirts, anything that would indicate don't wear poppies out. Like if you're going out, you really need to be careful when you're leaving camp of who's around the corner. So I felt there we weren't valued.
You see, and that's in your era.
Yeah.
In our era, most definitely like that, because of the IRA threat, you didn't leave camp, anything like that. I didn't know that actually in your era.
No,
Yeah.
So,
I get the outsiders to a certain extent,
Yeah.
not like living next to a barracks and things like that.
Yeah.
That's always gone on, hasn't
Obviously,
it?
yeah.
But no, I'm quite surprised at that. Yeah.
But and that's when that camp shut down and moved to Aldershot, which is military garrison, loved. Well, obviously, because everyone there is military family. So I saw sort of both ends. But I say as society in general, I would probably say that we're not really. I'd still say we're not really appreciated. I don't know what the reason is.
If I can put in again there, guys, and we've just sadly had the funeral of our monarch, Colonel-in-Chief, and the way that was
True, yeah.
performed was, I mean, there's nobody in the world can do anything like that whatsoever.
Yeah.
And people have been asking me, because they saw it at Prince Philip's funeral as well, where they carried the coffin up the steps and everything like that. And I said to these guys, I says, look, these guys have been at it for weeks.
Yeah.
They probably do that as a matter of course. You
yeah,
as an ex-guardsman,
yeah,
it must have been a training programme to do a military funeral, is it?
So my mates did do the funeral. They didn't carry it. That's something called Queen's Company. One of my sergeants in training, he was part of Queen's Company at the time. He's running it now, and their job is basically it's a company, but there's only like 6 or 8 of them, I think, and the company commander is a Queen. Well, the 6 of them. And their job is to carry the Queen's coffin. So I think they were saying they were in Iraq when the Queen died, and then straight back because their ultimate goal is to carry the Queen's coffin. You have to be like over 6'3" or something, and then, so they will have done training. But I never personally did that kind of training. But but they were straight away doing like 16-hour of drill every day, going out doing drill at 3 o'clock in the morning and London, because still on time, but the streets are free. So yeah, that's.
I think you know the country sees that and how proud they are of the military to a certain extent. I get your point 100%, you know, but on the other side, it's like watching Troop in the Colour.
Exactly.
It's perfect.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I didn't really think about that. There is times of the year where people do. Right, obviously, Remembrance Sunday.
Remembrance,
So it's good that people do actually have a bit of class and don't. Do you know what I mean? So they do go fair play. Sorry, no.
So yeah, moving on to the next question, lads. A bit of a sad question, to be honest. People always ask similar things though whenever I've done talks and stuff. So, did you lose many friends during your time in the forces?
I didn't know anyone who died on. Personally, didn't know anyone who died on operations. When I was in South Sudan, my battalion, so our battalion got split in half. Half went to Iraq, half went to South Sudan. Whilst they were in Iraq, there was a rocket attack, and there was a medic called Lance Corporal Brody. She died. One of our officers, Lieutenant Brewer, Second Lieutenant Brewer, he got injured, and then a few Germans and a few Americans got killed as well. So yeah, she was part of the Irish Guards battle group. I didn't personally know her, but she was a big thing in our battalion. But mainly for me, I knew people that just suicide whilst they were serving in the Irish Guards. I don't. That's probably more the common one nowadays. It's just suicide, isn't it? There's a lot of training accidents as well. Actually,
happening a lot at the minute. Isn't it?
I don't know about you, Scott.
Nothing. Obviously, whilst I was in there, but I know there has been some like training accidents. Like you said, there's a guy up in Yorkshire Regiment who he's on the training area, and I think he was in a tank there. But yeah, no, nothing. I can't imagine. Obviously, just given the time frame and with sort of Afghan ending, I think it was op pitting when the paras went over and they sort of got everyone out. That was the sort of, I guess, the last sort of thing which would have been notable if there has been any casualties, and there was obviously a couple there, but again, nothing from our side.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, for me, it's slightly different. We during our time, obviously, we lost quite a few lads over that period of time. One that stands out to me the most, probably, definitely worth a mention. Two, Jason Mackey was a good lad. I went through training with him, deployed with him. He was on the same tour I got blown up on. But the main one that sticks in my head, and it's a bittersweet story. Rob Richards, really good lad. I think he was on his 7th tour of Afghanistan. where I got blown up, he got blown up, same road as me, 100 metres further on, and made it back to the UK, but died in hospital, unfortunately. But literally, the day he died is the same day, probably, well, it's quite a few years on, but my little boy was born on the exact same day he died. And my boy was due 2 days prior and came late and came on the exact same day. But the lad who died, Rob Richards, is the lad who saved my life. So it's like a really, I'm not superstitious, but there's something in that story. So it's like a really bittersweet day for me now. It's easy to sit here and say, I was in for life. I wanted to go for selection, which for people who don't know, that's for the Special Forces.
Yeah.
I always had it in the back of my mind, but it's easy to sit there and say it when you know you can't do it. So whether I'd have done it, I don't know. But yeah, like mine was cut short in my prime. I was medically discharged, obviously. I lost my right leg, dislocated both my knees, broke my femur, broke my hip, dislocated my pelvis, broke my back, ruptured my spleen and broke my collarbone. Oh, and I had a little cut on my chin.
Just a little.
Yeah, well, apparently when I come back, like all this side of my face was covered in blood, and when the nurses cleaned me, my family thought I'd lost all my side of my face.
All right.
And then when the nurses cleaned me up, it was like a little shaving cut on my chin. So I've never been able to leave it down. That's why I grow the beard now, just to try and to hide that one. Moving on to, like, we've got to start wrapping this up. I'm very conscious we've took up a lot of your time off the phones and stuff. One good question probably to go with what we've been doing recently at the office and stuff. We've had a lot of well-being and mind things, and the company's a big advocate of that. So people have been asking, like, what kind of mental health support did you get when you were leaving? And obviously, like, the services that were available back in your day are probably different to nowadays. Mental health wasn't a bit, like, I know personally in my time it weren't that big a thing. Like, when I got discharged, I didn't get, like, you meant to get the trim training, and I just got sent on my way, and I was one of the lads that had been blown up, so like if I didn't get the mental health support, like the lads who were fighting and not getting blown up definitely weren't getting it. But like, how about your era? Yeah.
Zero. There was nothing. But on the other side of it, as I mentioned before, I was serving with the Ulster Defence Regiment, and their welfare system was second to none.
Really?
Yes.
Back in the day as well, yeah.
Yes. I was surprised when I went there, because the rest of the British Army, to me, the welfare system just didn't exist.
No.
It didn't exist whatsoever. You just got on and did it, get on with it. But they had a welfare system over there for obvious reasons, for losses and things like that, and so on, and it opened my eyes. It was good. It was good for them. You know, very, very much so. But as rest for that period of time, the British Army regular soldiers, there's
like,
little or nothing.
Yeah, we were all Marines, and it was always that you're all Marine man up, like, you don't, nothing affects you, like, you've got that green lid on your head, like, bullets bounce off you, so just crack on. How about you guys, like, modern day?
I still think it's very much the same in terms of that. Oh, you just man up, just sort of like, you know, you're meant to be in the infantry, and it's blah blah blah. You just crack on, and I think that is probably, which is a constant driving factor in mental health issues for people who do leave, because they've kept stuff bottled up so long that they just don't know what to do.
That's right.
And that's when things start to spiral. So yeah, I think there is definitely more to be done there. But yeah, just given obviously some of the things like you said, you what you received from what you'd encountered compared to the people who weren't injured, you know, and they might have seen that 10 times over.
Yeah.
So you know, what is that sort of effect?
What effect? I'm guessing you'd echo similar.
Because I never felt like I needed it, but the hard thing for me, and also when us and the Iraq lot came back, was lockdown. Lockdown was happening for a week, we didn't know what COVID was. So we came back we'd been away for 6 months, come back, lockdowns happened, and I knew personally a lot of people, especially on the Iraq side, who saw what had happened, were really struggling, and just due to the fact of lockdown, that they didn't necessarily have the resources available. When I was leaving, so didn't need it. I remember getting asked, I don't know, you do find medical. I remember there was a lot of mental health questions, like, do you have nightmares? Yeah, there are services, definitely are services there. Like I said, I never felt like I needed it, but I'm there's DCMH, something like that, I don't know, it's Defence Centre for Mental Health, I think it is. And I know people who went to that. But yeah, no, there's definitely more services now. But
I think
it's offered as an offered, but it's
Yeah.
not sort of pushed. I think it should be pushed more.
I think it's a
easier
great
to say
question
no,
as well, because it's so much in the forefront of everybody's minds at the minute. Like from my era, there's lots of lads that are committing suicide, but not just from the military, it's civilian. I think as a company, that I think like I feel like we do very well with that, because we do our mental health wellbeing sessions. I got approached the other week to become a mental health first aider. We've already got 2 within this office, and I'm taking up that purely as well because of with us signing the covenant, and we're trying to bring more veterans in as well.
Brilliant.
Like I can be a like point of reference for them if they need a chat, because obviously I can understand where they're coming from a little bit better, but also there to help anybody within the office, and I think as a company we're very good at that. But I just want to finish off, lads, and get your opinion on what are your thoughts on and what does it mean to you for us to have signed this covenant?
It's a good thing, yeah. Basically, I hope it brings more veterans because they have a unique skill set that can be helpful in recruitment.
I think it's recognition as well, which is fabulous, you know. I mean, there's little of it, I think, these days, and some people will pay just lip service to it, but not get involved and not be a box ticking exercise.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think what we're trying to achieve by signing it, and what we want to do for people who are leaving, sort of them sort of workshops that you touched on earlier. I think that's for me that means a lot, because I think I've been quite lucky to have a sort of civilian side before, so I'm sort of quite set. But, say someone like yourself, don't want to use you as an example, that might be clueless. I'm not saying someone who might, might be clueless, sort of gone in straight out of school, 17 years old. They might do 8 years, come out 25, not a clue. So I think how to structure your sort of CV. And just that sort of just how to sort of act in an interview, as opposed to how fast can you do the bleep test and how many push-ups and pull-ups can you do. I think that's a really strong thing we can do, especially from like our side as recruiters, and as also just for the right people, because that's what it is. So I think I'm really on board with that.
So it's nice to be in a company that actually cares and is willing, and like I can vouch for it now. Like I'll be on board with it. Natasha, who's headed it up for me, she's got everybody on board that needs to sign it and run with it, and I can guarantee, like, as a company, with everything we've done and everything we do, it's not, we don't do things by halves, like no matter what it is. And Natasha, who I've been speaking with, and we're both proactively, and she said to me, if we are going to sign this, I don't want to do it by halves. I want to make sure we uphold it, and we make sure we do everything we can to carry out our promise. And it does mean a lot to a lot of people upstairs, walking around this morning, getting the questions for this today, and speaking to people and telling them why we're doing it and stuff. And the amount of support from the office and the company as a general has been amazing. So I can personally vouch for we will see it through, and
Excellent.
I'll make sure I'm doing everything I can from my point of view, and again from you guys getting on board, helping out, and I much appreciate it. Again, for you guys, if you need that person at any point, you know where I am. But like, finally, just want to say a big thank you, lads, for coming on here today and being open and honest with us. And I know some subjects aren't quite the easiest, but I appreciate your time, and we'll have to do it more often, lads.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.